hope so, anyway. Well, welcome. Welcome to the special city council meeting for Wednesday, June the 27th, 2018 at 4 o'clock. And it is 4 o'clock. So would you call the roll, please?
Councilmember Gonzalez.
Here.
Councilmember Hamrick.
Here.
Councilmember Jaquez is absent. Councilmember Meisner.
Here.
Councilmember Smith.
Here.
Councilmember Turner.
Here.
Mayor Troutman.
Here. Would you rise for the Pledge of Allegiance? Thank you. The first portion on the agenda, we have a wayfinding report from Dina or Ryan or both, or Dina? Would you go right ahead?
We will. Hello. So this is a follow-up from the meeting that we had just a few weeks ago, where council provided direction on the signage and wayfinding work that a consultant is working on. And the result of that meeting was sort of a preferred direction for each type of sign, and then an alternate or variation that you still wanted to see. So we're here to show you that kind of preferred direction and then the variation within each of the sign types. So the first sign type is the Gateway Monument, and this is the Eastern Gateway. As we had talked a few weeks ago, there's a difference between the Eastern Gateway and the Western Gateway. So the Eastern Gateway sign is meant to be a Corten first layer, incorporate the uplifted buff sandstone at the base, and removing the location for a tagline and making the text Canyon City larger. And then the variation includes still incorporating a river line within that first sign face. So that's the two different options or variations on the Eastern Gateway side. So I don't know if you wanted to discuss each one individually before you move on to the next one, or go through all of them, as we have a much more succinct several to go through. So,
Well, when you talk about that, or this is what I have, and there's 4 in here.
It's the same. They just did an elevation and then
Okay.
a very broad conceptual kind of in situ simulation. So I just put one of the graphics in the PowerPoint so they could be as large as they could be on the screen.
Okay, you essentially then boiled it down to 2.
Right, the
Okay.
2 that are on the screen.
What's the pleasure of council?
Well, why don't we just start on the east side and work our way through and make some decisions and get this off the table.
Yeah.
Okay.
I agree. Let's do it.
That's fair enough. 1 or 2? This isn't an eye test. It's one. Put your hand over
Can you
here.
keep switching them? Well, those are the 2.
And still remember that these are conceptual, so like we can still work with the consultants to really even try to enlarge the text Canyon City even more than it's shown here, et cetera. So that the big difference here is just, do you want to see something alluding to a river line or not?
I have a question. Does this design also, remember we spoke about having the lights in between? Does this design, either one, have the lights on both of them?
Yes, and that,
Okay.
again, we'll come forward with that detail in the next round, but right now we're envisioning to have at least in between the 2 panels, having that blue panel uplit, and then we're still going to talk through how the front one, how it makes sense to uplight the front one, the Canyon City piece of it.
Okay, thank you.
I like the blue line, but I don't know in my mind that I see it as a river. But,
I prefer it
somebody
without.
might.
I prefer it without the line, the blue line.
Oh, I like with the line. Sorry, Dolly.
I like the line. I like the river. It's a little more exciting.
So can we do a thumbs up on the river? Or not river?
Well, let's just
Well,
start.
you can go through.
That's
Start it.
one finger or 2 fingers?
No. Hold it. I'll conduct this. Kristen, would you start it? Let's go this way.
Okay, so my preference would be the second one with the blue line or river. Yeah, I like that.
Thank you. Mr. Meisner?
I go with the squiggly also.
That's the blue line.
Yes, sir.
Thank you, Mr. Hamrick.
I prefer not the blue line, but I'm good either way, actually.
So you're ambivalent either way?
I prefer one.
One. Okay. Ashley?
I prefer the river, and if needed, maybe we can ask him to make it look more like a river. If
What, do you want a
needed.
raft on
But
it,
I like
too?
it. If that was a concern for you, but yeah, I'm voting 2.
Dolly?
I prefer one, but I'm outnumbered.
So what did Ashley do?
So I get
For
the,
the river.
3 to 2.
What's Mayor's vote?
I like the river in that, so.
That's 4.
Good enough.
Is that
I know
4?
Frank does. And I know that the new applicant does, too.
I'll do this meeting. Okay.
Jim, you want to take this out back?
Is that okay, Dina?
So we're-
I think
Good there?
the river.
With the river. So
Yeah.
Councilwoman Smith, can you provide a little more input on what you're envisioning or thinking when you think
Well, I
look more
guess
like a
I'm-
river?
There's just some concern if it looked like a river or not. I don't know, I got it, that it was a river. And I can actually, if you think of it being backlit, if that river pops out with color at night, I think that'd look really, really cool. So I guess I'm okay. If anything, I'd say maybe the letters maybe a little bit bigger.
Yeah. Okay,
Okay,
we have a river. We have a decision.
all right.
Okay, so now moving on to the Western Gateway. Again, you know, we spoke last time about the difference on this one, that the preferred direction was basically 2 more upright pillars or pylons. Again, that would have that Corten first layer, have the sandstone base. We removed the welcome sign. We're still accommodating a bike ped level map on the sign. And so on the left-hand side is what the preferred direction was, and the variation that you still wanted to see was including a sort of half bridge with a welcome sign connecting the 2 pylons.
Okay. Sir, can we start?
Yes,
on this
sir.
end?
Yes, go right ahead, Mr. Meisner.
Well, okay.
Oh, okay. Well,
Kristen?
I like the second one, but I would take the welcome off of it. I know before we had looked at it kind of flipped the other direction, and I don't like the way it looks hanging down there, so I think it would look really nice to keep the reference to the bridge, but take the word welcome off. That would be my vote.
Can she vote on something that's not here?
I just did.
Are you done?
I am finished.
I just like the clean number 1. I'm done. John?
I'm waiting my turn.
Mr. Hamrick,
What?
the preferred one.
1.
Preferred.
Okay.
The one on the left.
Pre-
We have 2 to 1.
Number 2.
Dolly?
With or
I
without the
prefer number 2 as well.
welcome? Ask him about the welcome.
I prefer number 2, but
With or without
I
the
wonder if we could put the welcome underneath Canyon City on the first pillar? Is that possible?
It was there.
Would that be
but we-
too?
welcome. What's Dina's thought there? Come on, give us some help.
Do you really want my thought?
Yeah.
Well, the previous version, I think we had the welcome sign on the right-hand pillar.
Right.
But, I mean, we can try to still incorporate welcome into one of the pillars. I recall the consultant saying that they
Didn't think it was.
didn't think what the welcome wording was necessary. I actually don't like the bridge. I like the simplicity of number 1. So,
Ryan, what's
for what
your
it's
vote?
worth.
Mr. Mayor,
pardon. Yes, go ahead.
whatever it's worth, if you come from the east side, there's no welcome. If you're coming from the west, you potentially have already been at the bridge, so the bridge has some relevance to you. And if you've already been at the bridge, I think you already would maybe feel welcomed, whatever that's worth.
Good point.
So are you saying you liked my variation?
No, I'm saying that I'm accepting your variation.
Okay.
And I think the welcome as it is does look kind of misplaced. But back to the designers and whoever's concept was, is that you really maybe don't need welcome as much as we think we do. But we don't have a welcome on the east side, so.
I can go either way on the welcome. If we don't want it on there, that's totally fine with me.
How about the bridge structure?
I preferred the bridge.
Did you? Okay.
Well, I thought, yeah, we're on a number 2, right? Just whether we do or do not want to welcome. Let's just vote on the welcome.
Well, what does a welcome look like when you're coming from the east? Ignawag?
Well, depending on which way you're reading it.
That's what I said. Ignawag.
From that way.
What? Well, okay.
Brian, I didn't hear what was your preference.
My preference would be number 2 without the welcome.
Listen to that. So either way,
All right, let's take the welcome off.
Yeah, so Tuesday.
Okay.
Number 2.
Okay.
Okay. Next. So we have now the wayfinding directional sign type, and these are going to be on a couple of slides. The first 2 slides are going to have the preferred and then the variation, just because I wanted them to be large enough on the slide, and then I'll move to a 3rd slide that shows them side by side. So again, the preferred direction on this is 2 layers of material at the top with the curving dividing line. The main body color is black, and then some of the other concerns or items that were mentioned the last time we met was that the goldenrod color for the term Canyon City, the name might not read well, so they are also showing a white option. And then they're also showing a little bit more ornate wood pole. And remember that the 3 different poles would be used in different contexts. So the wood pole primarily would be used probably up at the gorge. So that's the one with the black, and the variation is basically showing like a corten or brown background base as the main body color.
Dolly?
Oh, okay. I prefer the black with all white writing.
Why the black?
Why the brown?
No, I'm saying, why, is it just
I
a,
like the black. I think it looks cleaner, and I just think it's a little more classic.
we also saw the black signs up
in Vail.
in Beaverton, and they looked really nice.
I was driving. I didn't see the signs.
good response, as you were texting?
Yes.
It was all research based.
Well, they weren't, what's the material on these, potentially? Or we don't know yet?
Presuming some sort of metal. We haven't really walked through those details yet.
All we're talking about is basically the color.
Right.
And you would have the opportunity to use any one of those 3 depending on where you're going to put it. Is that correct?
Right.
We're talking about the color of the background. So on this slide, the slide that's up now, either the black, well, 2 things, the black back or the brown back, and then either the goldenrod colored text for Canyon City or white.
Oh, I see. All right.
Yeah. See, so I like the all white print, not the golden on the black.
Okay, got it. I didn't mean.
I got
Okay.
that.
Okay, so my preference would be for black, but I do like the gold print. It's different, and it's classy, and it's consistent with our logo.
Just for whatever it's worth, even when you look at that though, Ashley, I mean, you can,
Yeah, that's true, and that, on the
muted.
I
screen, it
mean,
doesn't show very well.
I'm gold too, but when I look at that,
Well,
Which-
remember our projector
well, I know,
doesn't
but
have
it's
great
still going to
resolution.
be somewhat representative of driving down the
But
highway at 55
the signs in
texting.
Beaverton, they were gold print, weren't they? Wasn't there
Excuse me?
gold print?
Gold, yes.
And I
Yeah.
didn't think
Yeah.
there was
And
any
again-
problem reading it.
These are largely at pedestrian level or slower speeds. I don't think it makes that much of a difference.
And is that we decided that was 12 miles an hour?
15?
No, I thought we already officially decided that at 12,
The-
pedestrian speed.
Oh, pedestrians.
Yes, that's,
Caitlin,
Oh,
If you're running.
if we're going to,
Previous meeting.
Well, if he'll just quit debating, we'll ask you.
I'm happy to give my opinion. Well, I have a question, I guess. The gold print, or I guess all the print on the either background, have we considered whether, if someone was colorblind, whether they'd have trouble reading one or the other?
We can put these in grayscale. I mean, we can have the consultants, I mean, we can change them to grayscale and see what would that look like.
Okay.
So,
But is that representative of colorblind, though?
Depends what kind of colorblind.
right.
I mean, there's red, green,
Right.
and that, you should still see that.
You think?
So I guess I prefer Canyon City in white, and I like the brown background.
Am I outvoted? I prefer the brown background myself. I like the gold letters. So,
split
so
four
far,
ways.
there's 4 different choices.
And I'm last, kind of. I still like the brown on the gold. I realize the black is more contrast, but again, we're talking about slower traffic and pedestrian, right?
These primarily, as folks are driving down US 50, these would be along US 50 as well. And so they would be scaled to still be read at a
They better be
vehicular
bigger
level
than that.
in certain conditions
Highway 50, it better be huge.
in downtown. They would be sized differently if they were further out in Central Canyon.
So Mayor, what is your preference?
I think Canyon City should be there, but if they don't know where they're at, we shouldn't be telling them. So, and I do see the brown actually does match our entryway signs. The big ones that we talked about, it would match. Although I am partial to the black with the gold letters.
So what's your vote?
So what's the vote?
Darn.
Come on, you always complain and you don't get a vote.
All right. I think I would like to have the brown with the gold letters because it would match the entryway signs.
Okay, so I think we have 3 with brown background with gold letters for Canyon City.
Well, the gold's just Canyon City, right? Or is everything gold?
No,
Just Canyon City.
just Canyon City.
Yeah.
Yeah.
That seems consistent then.
That's
Okay.
I can live with that.
All right. That's all.
Oh, my goodness.
Well, don't we have the historic district signs to talk about?
Right, there weren't any variations on those, so, I mean, I put them in here in case you wanted to look at them again. So for instance, the secondary gateway sign, this would be probably at 15th-ish area coming into the broader downtown core of the city. That would be replicated similar to the Eastern Gateway sign, so I would presume since we are now going in the direction of having a river on that one, we would probably look at incorporating that here as well.
As far as the district signs go, I would like to put in some input that they seem a little bit tall.
I'm sorry, which
Their
ones?
scale on the district signs seem a little bit kind of gargantuously tall.
Yeah, we can work with the consultant on that. I think it's, if you look in the context of the middle photo there, and how they've inserted that one in the scale of a ped light, to me, that does seem very appropriate for that type of sign.
So what are they about? How tall is it?
If the ped lights are 14 feet to top of luminaire, then that's about 13 feet, 12 feet.
And my other input would be is that when we were talking about redoing Centennial Park and upgrading Mountain View Park, they also needed to have new signs. And in those meetings, we had talked that whatever those new signs would be would probably be consistent with what we decided here. And I felt like these district signs would actually be really cool to have at the parks, as far as like a Centennial or Mountain View Park. That would look really awesome. So I don't know if they could have them design for that as well, because we need those signs.
I can ask them. That would be adding a sign type, or that's something that we can just keep in mind for future.
Well, we need those, I thought the conversation was that we'd have those sign types done for including our parks, our city parks.
The parks were not included as part of the contract.
Well, they should have been. So anyways, I would like to see something kind of like this. I think that would look great. And we
Yep.
need those signs. I would like to have something artistic and unique and beautiful that could, somebody even want to take a picture with. And if we're going to do it, now's the time to get that done.
So you're proposing like Veterans, Centennial, Rudd?
Well,
They're all city
potentially,
parks,
but right now,
basically.
yeah, it would potentially be all city parks, but right now it's Mountain View and Centennial that really need them. And we were going to replace them at this year, but we wanted to wait until we had the signs designed and chosen.
Okay. All right.
We'll follow up.
Mr. Mayor,
Yes, sir.
question. This sounds stupid, but which way would that river be running? If you added a river? Vertical or horizontal?
Oh, on here?
Yeah. Did you just say that, or did you
Oh,
not?
that
No,
was
I
for
did
the
not.
other sign.
Okay, never mind.
Yeah, that's a different sign.
Okay.
That was
I
on
heard you
the-
say that you were
Yeah,
adding that.
on this sign,
Right.
the secondary entry monument.
Okay.
That's the more horizontal, close to the ground.
Mr. Hamlick?
So if I understood actually what you were saying, and we're talking about, are we talking about the tall skinny ones or the?
I was thinking the tall skinny one would look really cool at the park.
So
Yeah.
I don't think we need a new design. I think Councilwoman Smith is asking for is that we have a couple other ones. And
Yeah,
I-
it's-
Well, I absolutely agree that these would look fantastic in the parks. Just from the current contract with the consultant, they don't have in their scope to do construction document level drawings of
Oh.
that particular sign type. That's all I'm trying to say.
Well, let's amend
At this
it.
time, so, yep, and we can do that.
It won't cost that much.
Twist their arm.
Now, all the letters are already there.
Exactly. Just substitute different letters.
Just got to
There
change
might,
them
yeah, I mean, I
around.
guess there's like park rules and stuff that might, but
Yeah.
I think the rules are already up at the parks.
Yeah, they are.
We'll follow up.
We can offer them a free raft trip or something like that. Thank you. Everybody done? Thank you, Dana. Ryan?
Thanks. Good
Next
job.
time, we're going to ask Ryan to talk, though, okay? All right. Okay, the next thing on our agenda is to interview candidates for at-large city council seat. And we have, in attendance, we have Mr. Reef and Mr. Hanson. Should I go over the rules of the game, or? is it-
Is-
so- Okay,
Mrs. Cochran's not here?
pardon?
Mrs. Cochran's not here?
She's coming late. She has to wait until she gets off work, so we're going to do her best.
Okay. Or if we run out of time, that'll be fine.
You're going to explain the process?
What?
I don't know what's going on.
We're going to put the candidates in the room and then ask them to come out one at a time. Okay? And my question was to the discussion of how we did it the last time, which means that we would vote. And I think in that, you can vote for a candidate or you can reject all the candidates. Okay?
Well, you would vote for a candidate or none of the candidates.
And none of the candidates, right?
And if you do not vote for a candidate, it would strengthen somebody else's vote for a candidate.
And that was my question. Would we vote first if we wanted to vote on a candidate today or not? And then go from there?
Well, my point is that if I don't vote for a candidate, I think that numerically that strengthens everybody else's vote. So I would suggest that at this point, or prior to voting, we make a decision as to whether we're going to vote or not vote,
That's what I was
Accept the slate
saying.
of candidates or not.
or accept the slate.
Yeah.
We have to do that before or after? We could do it after?
It's probably preferable to do it before, just indicate whether you have an interest in selecting anyone. If not, then it's a moot issue.
Well, but my only concern is that after the interview, we may say, no.
Yeah, that's your program. You should make that decision right after the interview.
Okay.
Okay. Does everybody understand? Max Hansen.
Excuse me, Mayor, do you prefer this if the staff take over the building?
Yes,
Yeah.
yes. Make him comfortable. Hi, Max.
Hi, Preston. How are you?
Doing good, doing good. So what we're going to do is have a discussion and questions from the council people. You've done this before.
Yes.
And so, Caitlin, would you care to start? I did get your name correct this time, right?
You did, thank you.
I'm so embarrassed.
Appreciate that. Let's see here, where should we start? You said in your letter
Yes.
that Canyon City is not a location conducive to economic success for new businesses.
Yes.
And I wonder if you could explain why you believe that.
Well, I think part of the evidence we can actually see if we just walk out Main Street. I mean, if you actually walk down just from here towards, let's say, 9th Street, for example, there's a lot of vacant lots there, commercial real estate. I believe the last time I was there, I still saw boarded up buildings, same thing I had mentioned actually last time I was here. And having written some of my own business plans, I think I mentioned that in my letter as well, there are a few infrastructure issues, I'll say, that kind of limit the types of businesses that can actually start here. For example, internet speed is one of them. If someone wanted to start, I mean, I don't want to bring up telemedicine, but more teleconsulting, even doing teleconference meetings, or not teleconference meetings, excuse me, on businesses, but being able to hold those meetings, you know, remotely. There's also, I think, a bit of an issue when it comes to the ability for some residents here to engage in the economic business in the community, whether it be purchasing goods or starting their business. We don't have a good resource here either. When I was working on that myself, when I was partnering with the Chamber of Commerce, I had met with a SCORE representative. That seemed to be the extent of what we had here up until Ryan had actually joined the city staff and became part of that economic development team. I know there's also, at least from what I have heard, there are also some issues when it comes to not zoning, but building regulations that aren't exactly conducive to some businesses, whether that be the way that buildings are able to secure their own doors to provide safety for their associates or employees. Yeah, I mean, I know I kind of went around quite a bit there, but I really feel like we need to be looking at the community members that live here in Canyon City and looking at what ideas they have to start their own businesses, to be entrepreneurs. You know, having partnered also with the Canyon City Workforce Center here, there's a lot of people that go into that center looking for jobs, and they are not available here, whether it be an industry that they have not been trained in or worked in, and they're kind of left wanting I guess if that makes sense. They're having to go to other locations, whether it be Pueblo, Colorado Springs, or Denver. I know particularly myself, I know several people who, yes, they live here, but I think there would be an opportunity for them to have their businesses here rather than having offices, again, in Springs or Pueblo.
Thank you.
Sorry.
No, don't apologize.
Thank you. Mr. Meisner?
I'm next. Thanks for applying again.
Yes.
My question is, I'm going to say it's in regards to what I hopefully read on, I think, your Facebook page.
Okay.
I'm going to try to quote this.
Sure.
It says, as a citizen, I'm tired of continually seeing the people representing us resign because they are unable to fill the requirements of the position.
Correct.
What's that mean?
What's that mean? Well, I don't know the circumstances related to, I don't want to say the previous, but there was the first council member that had resigned earlier this year. I don't know the circumstances that led to her resignation. But then I have talked with Mark Gill in the past. I'd actually written a little prepared statement earlier, but in the talks I had had with him, I know he had a business in Colorado Springs that he was responsible for. And I know that took a lot of commitment from him to divide his time between his business and the employees he had and the time he needed to spend here helping the city. As far as those responsibilities, it's a commitment. This is how I look at it. It is a commitment not just to the city and the staff here, but the people of the city. And I think going into this position, knowing what your responsibilities will entail, if you're unable to fulfill them, I don't feel like you should be really putting your name out there to actually be a part of it. Again, there was recently the seat that we are looking for here, and I have the utmost respect for Greg, but purchasing a property, I would think you would know where that property would be, whether it would be in city limits or outside city limits. Does that answer your question, council member?
Well,
or could I clarify in another way?
No,
or?
I think I'll clarify.
Okay.
Whatever it's worth. And I'll correct me if I'm wrong, but I think all the previous openings were a result of those council people being ineligible by charter to participate on council because of their residence.
Okay.
Yes.
That comment that I had made was more addressed to the people who had been on council and could no longer serve in that capacity.
Because of residency.
Because they all moved.
Right.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But again, going into an election, you know how long your commitment is supposed to be.
Mr. Hamrick?
Thank you. Thank you, Max, for coming.
Thank you.
Appreciate you sending in your resume to us and your letter of interest.
Mm-hmm.
I note in there that you mentioned some of our state representatives, and you mentioned the FEDC
Mm-hmm.
and Upper Arkansas Council of Governments.
Correct.
Have you had any formal contact with those people or organizations?
I have actually met with Rob Brown several times. Before he actually started TechStart down here off of Main Street, I had met with him looking into that again for one of the business plans I had written myself. They were still in the early stages at that point, so there were no concrete information. I had talked to him about how I might be able to partner with him to actually contribute to FEDC's goal and mission to look at the economic development here in Fremont County. As far as the state representatives and everything go, I had included that because again, I feel as a local government, if we have an opportunity to partner with other governmental leaders to provide a benefit to this city, that is our responsibility to do. And I have gone before the House Finance Committee here up in Denver to testify on legislation, not necessarily on behalf of Canyon City, but it did benefit Canyon City. That was in regards to HB 1070, which was a bill that increased funding for the BEST grant program, which Canyon City did benefit from. We have a Washington Elementary and a Canyon City Middle School that's going to be rebuilt because of the funding that program provides.
Thank you.
Mm-hmm.
Ashley?
It's good to see you again, Max.
Yes,
Thank
you
you
too,
for being here. I have a couple questions, if that's okay. Do
course.
you know the time commitment that it takes?
Yes, I do.
to serve?
I would expect, honestly, anywhere from about 15 hours to 20 hours a week spent on this. And that's just from, again, my own experience and having gone through the past few days after actually Jerry had sent me the notice about this meeting. I had gone through every agenda that I've seen from the last time I came here for the District 4 seat. I actually requested the minutes of every city council meeting, general government committee meeting, which Jerry did email me, and I've gone through those. I watched actually the recording for the vision committee meeting, which I actually enjoyed that. I thought the idea of a certified local government here would provide a lot of opportunity for some of the businesses in maintaining and rebuilding some of the buildings, especially, for example, the Hotel St. Cloud. I don't know if it's too late for them, because I did read in the paper not too long ago about some issues with their fundraising. And also potentially even the auxiliary buildings at the Abbey. I know a lot of those are kind of dilapidated, and they've been going through their own process to rebuild them and maintain them.
Okay. You mentioned issues with businesses being able to secure their own doors. Do you want to expound on that?
The businesses?
Mm-hmm.
Well, this was actually something I brought up to Dolly when her and I had met a few months ago. This is an example, again, just from my current employer where I work. And before I elaborate on that, I'd actually like to touch on one other thing regarding that on your previous question. I have partnered with not only our district manager where I work, but also our regional HR manager, and they've all been supportive and have mentioned they would commit to allowing me to make sure I have the time necessary to fulfill any duties or obligations I would have if you decide to appoint me. But as far as the business aspect, the main door where I actually work, once our closing hours actually hit, we're not allowed to lock that door, okay? We don't have a way to lock it from the inside. So unfortunately, what we have to do is we have to shut the doors, and we try and put a barrier in front of the door to create an obstacle if anyone decides to pry open the doors or come in. To
Are
me, that-
you not allowed to lock the door because of your business policy or
No,
city?
from what we were told, it was a regulation that the city has.
That's
Tony, is that-
not true. It's a
We were-
requirement of the fire code. Their particular business chose those particular doors. They could have chosen other doors. We have talked to their managers about that. They were going to talk to their corporate people as to whether they wanted to change out those doors. That was their choice, and the choice was driven by the fire code. Nothing to do with the city, the fire department.
I'm not familiar too much with the fire code, but breakaway doors are not
We
included
are.
in that?
We've talked to your managers about
Okay.
this.
I was just asking. So
Facts.
I am not disputing the facts. I'm just letting you know this is what I have heard. Are the breakaway doors included in that fire code?
Let me just put it this way once
Yes.
again. We've spoken to your managers about the
Mhm.
issue. They're well aware. If they want to correct the situation, they can. The decision was driven by the fire code, not by the city. The fire code was enforced by the fire department, which is a separate governmental entity.
Okay.
So they can address that, and they indicated to us they were going to do that.
Okay, so I'd like to move
Okay.
on to a different question.
Sure.
In your letter, you say that you want to partner with Fremont County Commissioners to ensure that they're doing everything in their power and ability to see Canyon City prosper and grow. What is your strategy to ensure the cooperation of the county commissioners?
Well, I can't compel their cooperation, but I would like to partner with them and work alongside them, because the way I see it, if Canyon City prospers, so does Fremont County.
We're going to be prioritizing our budget for 2019.
Yes.
What would be some of your priorities for Canyon City to focus on in their budget and projects in 2019?
Well, I don't have too much experience, at least going through Canyon City's budget. I did spend some time a few months ago going through some of it. I do have experience managing budgets and making recommendations for budgets in a business. As far as some of the things I would like to see Canyon City focus on, I would like to see some, maybe not necessarily funds put aside, but yes, I guess programs set up to, again, help local entrepreneurs succeed here in Canyon. That would be one goal for sure. I know a lot of that may not necessarily come in the form of a grant or sponsorship or anything, but at least partnering with them, whether it be hiring maybe another city staff member to help Ryan partner with those businesses. I would also like to see, I feel we have done a great job as a city, or the council has done a great job for the city in addressing our parks. I love the way Centennial Park has looked. You know, I spent a year and a half in Amarillo, Texas, managing a store there. And granted, it is a much larger city, but almost every park in that city has a splash pad. And it was something, no matter which park you went to, there were family members, community members, all there enjoying it. And I like the way that we have, or this council has, developed that area, not only to make it not more accessible, but make it a place family members want to go to, but also as a destination where the city can hold events like Whitewater, which we just had. I think that's a great way to bring tourists here and use that for our own economic growth.
Okay, next question. It says that you are sure that there are dozens of other sources of revenue that can be used for infrastructure projects. What kind of reliable revenue sources are you?
Well, a lot of that would have to go from, or come from state or federal grants. So it wouldn't be anything here in our state budget. That would be something we would have to have a grant writer apply for and submit on our behalf.
And can I get just a yes or no on your support or non-support for the following possible future projects? Just yes or no.
Mm-hmm.
Hotel St. Cloud acquisition.
The city acquiring it?
Yeah. Just yes or no.
I understand yes or no. Without more information, I can't say yes or no.
Okay. River corridor investment.
I am definitely for river corridor investment.
Urban deer hunting.
I'm sorry, urban deer hunting. I would have a lot of concerns about that, so at this time, without more information, no.
Community recreation center.
I would be for that. I would need to hear more.
Recreational marijuana.
In the past, I have said that I was for that.
And Highway 50 corridor access.
Under the current plan, I am not for it. I made recommendations during the last public forum I was at. I would have to see any changes to make any additional change in my judgment.
Okay. And stormwater infrastructure priority.
I think it's a necessary for the community, so I know it's required.
Okay, thank you.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, Ms. Gonzalez?
Hi, Max.
Hi, Dolly.
Just a couple of questions.
Yes.
What
Dolly, is your microphone on?
Oh, yeah, I'm sorry.
Just want to make sure everyone home can hear.
What areas of municipal operations are of interest to you, and what areas do you feel are most complex?
Probably the one that interests me the most is, I'm kind of a finance person. I like looking at numbers. I like evaluating things like that and trying to figure out a way we can more wisely spend money. I'm not saying that we spend it ill-wisely, but that would definitely be something I would like looking into. I know as far as zoning, that's not something I am too familiar with, but is definitely something that I would view as a challenge, and I would definitely like the opportunity to overcome. It's something I've expressed interest in before when there were vacancies on Planning Commission.
Okay. And how would you propose to make it easier for citizens in our community to be more active in local government?
Honestly, doing outreach. To be honest, I mean, I don't want to, exactly point her out, but there is a student here from Canyon City High School. I've actually partnered with the Fremont RE1 School District. I was asked to be an outside consultant for their TOPS program, and this is part of it. Her goal was to learn more about government, and she's here.
Hi, guys. Neighbors. Good. Thank you.
Mm-hmm.
Is that it?
Yeah.
Okay. Are there any other questions you want to rejoin her? Wait a minute.
I thought we were limited to one question, so I could ask more questions.
I'm open for more.
No, go ahead.
Okay.
One more question.
Sure. Thank you.
I'm
I mean,
kidding.
who's keeping track,
Go,
right?
absolutely.
What do you think City Council could do better or differently?
Sure.
I'm not sure there is really something City Council could necessarily do better. As far as I'm concerned, if no one's showing up to the meetings, you're doing something right. I take silence as agreement as far as the decisions that are being made. I think the public forums are definitely required for any decisions that are being made. I think that might even be required under some ordinance or revised statute. But definitely, community outreach is a huge thing. And if there was an opportunity outside of those public forums, I would be looking at those.
Okay, thank you.
Mr. Meisner?
Sorry. In regard to, in regards to downtown development,
Yes.
you seem to imply that maybe you have a solution to help with that downtown situation, but very quickly give us what council could do, but also recognizing that that's, as far as I know, 99% private property.
Right.
So give us an idea in terms of what council should be doing to fix the Main Street problem.
Okay. Well, first, I just want to address the interpretation, I guess, that I might have had a solution. I don't believe there is just one single solution, so I did want to clarify that. I know in the past, City Council has looked at establishing a downtown development authority to partner with the local businesses along Main Street. I don't know what the status of that has been over the last 2 years. When I was partnering with our Canyon City Chamber of Commerce, it didn't seem like there was much movement, I should say, at least from what I was hearing from them, on the Downtown Development Authority. My understanding of that is that the property tax revenue that comes in, part of that can be earmarked for a Downtown Development Authority, which they can use to establish funds for development of those local businesses. Now, whether that be the Downtown Development Authority partnering with those businesses and finding ways that they can become more profitable or relocate to a better area along Main Street, or help subsidize maybe some of the rent offsets that they have for the locations that they are actually renting out, to being maybe even a code enforcement along Main Street to ensure that we're not running into issues, again, where businesses potentially may have been boarded up. To me, it's an eyesore to the community, and I think it distracts.
Can I make a comment?
Quickly.
I think the downtown merchants rejected the concept.
Okay.
Is that
I was not aware of that.
No, it kind of faded or fizzled with the passing away of John Haven, who was in his lap. And it was not the concept of the Downtown Development Authority. There would have been 2 elections. There was a lot of support for DDA, but not for the mill levy.
Same diff.
Yeah.
So can I ask a question real quick on that?
Yes, go ahead.
Okay, so the mill levy then, was that just going to be in addition to the funds that would have been earmarked, or?
There would have been no funds.
We didn't have anything earmarked. There would just be a mill levy that would accrue to the DDA.
So it would have been additional then?
The normal
It
tax.
would have funded the DDA.
It would have funded it in addition to
Okay.
the normal tax that would be there. Yeah. Anyone else?
I'm good. Thank you.
Okay, I just have a few questions.
Sure.
Sometimes there's, we make decisions that impose or imprint themselves on private property. What's your feeling on private property about it?
I think it's private. In most instances, I am not for any form of eminent domain, which would be the city possessing the property. I would rather work alongside the private property owner rather than force them or compel them to do something.
Okay, what about, who do you think you work for as a council person? That's not.
Who would I work for as a council person? I believe, as an at-large seat, I believe I would work for the people of Canyon City.
How would you do an outreach to those people to find out what they're thinking? Do you have an idea?
Well, I know in the past, City Council has done citizen surveys, and the experience I have, I think talking to them directly has been a big eye-opener in some instances. So I know not necessarily everyone has the time to do it, but even just going around town, knocking on doors and talking to the business owners while they're working. I mean, I would like to see more things like that, I guess, if that makes sense.
you think the mayor should be stronger in this town, or just the way it is?
I'm sorry, that the what?
Do you think the mayor should have a stronger position in this town, or just the way it is? Careful. No, I'm just,
Well, I'll say one of the last city council meetings I was at, not this one, but the one before the District 4 interview, when we had the recess, I told you personally that I appreciated how you handled that situation. And to me, I definitely think the mayor should have a strong voice in the city.
okay. Very good. Well, anyway, no.
Okay, you got Preston's vote.
That was more.
Well, he doesn't have a vote, so.
Yeah.
He does.
Well, and
Well, on a tie.
just on a lighter note, I want to throw that question in.
Okay.
Anybody else have any questions? No? He's shaking his head. Okay, well, no more. Thank you, Max.
Thanks.
And
Thank you.
let's get the next person out here.
Who's next?
Mr. Reeve.
Yeah, how many questions are we supposed to ask?
I think it's a time thing. It's up to you.
I don't have as many to the others asked. What's in the letter?
You're making a selection of an individual. If you think you've got 10 questions within the time constraints, which we could be here till 9 o'clock. I won't be here till 9 o'clock, but if you wish to ask numerous questions,
Candidate?
then I think you should have that privilege as a council person to do
I
so.
agree.
I'm glad we clarified. I wasn't a part of the other, last
were on
time.
the other
I was on the
side.
side, so I
Yeah.
didn't realize the rules.
She was
Yeah.
at the
They're
end of the
really,
meeting.
you certainly can
Do you
take
like it better
the
on this
time.
side?
Certainly, it's much better, much easier to be on this side.
We haven't
Okay.
voted yet either.
Okay, hi Ken.
How you doing?
Mr. Reef, we have questions that we'll ask you, and feel free to tell us what you think.
All right.
So let's start this, and Dolly, did you want to start this time?
Sure. Hi, Ken.
Hi, Dolly.
Let's see, what areas of municipal operations are of interest to you? And what areas do you find most complex?
Can you repeat that question again?
Sure. What areas of municipal operations are of interest to you? So any of the issues that we're facing right now.
Well, me personally, it's the opioid crisis. You know. Can you hear me now?
Yes.
My personal interest is the opioid crisis, especially with all the kids here in town on heroin and stuff. In my letter, you'll see I'm a retired bail bondsman, so I've been dealing with this opioid crisis for quite a long time. I was a bondsman up in Pueblo. We lived down here for a specific reason because the crime rate was so much worse up there. But I've seen so many people's lives destroyed by heroin, pills, alcohol. There's so many different things. But I think that's my big concern is children, dealing with children around here, the safety of children, drugs, things like that. I'm not the typical politician or anything like that. I'm a bondsman. That's what I did. I chased bad guys all my life. I repoed cars. I did private investigations. I'm a very fast learner. Most of my skills relied on researching and stuff like that. I have rods and screws in my back. I've had 6 shoulder surgeries, neck surgery, elbow, wrist. So for me, most bondsmen and bounty hunters would have to actually chase people down, physically grab them, cuff them. I had to learn to do it a little differently because of my disabilities and stuff. So I had to use my negotiation skills. So out of 9 out of 10 guys that I'm chasing, I'm going to convince them to turn themselves into me rather than me have to run after them and tackle them and hurt myself and stuff like that. That's just something that I had to do, and I had a very good knack for it, trying to convince people to turn themselves in or whatever. So I just want to get that out. I don't know a whole lot about city function or anything like that. I'm a very fast learner. My due diligence, I've always done my due diligence in anything that I've ever done. So I may not know everything about the stormwater issues or anything like that, but I will learn. I think the big thing why I did this is because I understand the climate's so bipolar, you know, with Republicans and Democrats, and we can never get on the same page and discuss anything. I figured the best way to do that is start locally and working my way out, you know. That's the best way to do it. We can sit and gripe about all the national problems on Facebook all day long. We're not going to accomplish anything. So until you get up, come down and apply for a position or get off your butt and do something, you don't know what you can accomplish. So that's why I'm here.
Are you on Facebook?
Yep.
Okay. And then my other question is, how would you propose to make it easier for citizens in our community to be more active in local government?
Well, I think it falls back on the climate right now. You know, a lot of people just don't even want to try because they know they're going to get in there and they're going to start butting heads with people, you know, because everybody has different opinions and stuff like that. So I think if we can get Republicans, Democrats, everybody to sit down and discuss in like a group, like a town hall meeting, something that's very basic that we can all discuss and kind of get on the same page about one thing and then work on other things. But, you know, I've just noticed, and I'm going back to Facebook because that's what I see a lot, because a lot of people won't confront anybody personally, you know, face to face. It's always on Facebook. But I noticed that a lot of the people that are on Facebook talking like that, when you do get in front of them and you state your opinion, they're more open to it, you know, it's because you're face to face with them and stuff. But these debates on Facebook, they go nowhere. So I don't know. We just need to figure out a way to get people to come out to these town hall meetings, city hall meetings, and discuss things on a calm basis and see where we can gain some ground and where we can start to build some kind of a better rapport with one another. I think right now that's the big problem, is that we're too divided. You know, everybody's divided on their own opinions and stuff. I'm unaffiliated. I don't bring up political stuff on Facebook or anything like that. You know, I just don't, because you lose friends. You never get a real good debate out of it, you know. So I'd rather sit in front of somebody and discuss these problems than use Facebook or social media to try to fix stuff, because it doesn't do anything.
Do you feel that our community is divided?
I think every community is divided.
And how would you go about fixing that?
To be honest, I really don't know right now. That's why I'm here.
Okay, thank you.
Ms. Smith?
Hey, Ken.
Hi.
We're glad to have you here today.
Thank you.
You mentioned that you prefer not to make political statements on Facebook because you can lose friends. Do you have the stomach to be on city council and make difficult decisions which will ultimately could lose friends?
I really don't have any friends anymore that are, you know, I've lost all the ones that weren't really friends. I got the loyal ones that are always going to be there, but I don't have a whole lot of friends in Canyon City. My business has been up in Pueblo. You know, I've done business in Springs, Denver. You know, that's where most of my friends are. We've been involved with racing for years, Pikes Peak Hill Climb, Colorado Hill Climb, superbike races and stuff like that. So my friends are scattered all over the place. And I do have right-wing conservative Christian friends, and I have left-wing, you know, friends. And for some reason, as long as we don't discuss politics to, you know, to certain extents, we're all fine, you know. It's just that when people start bringing up different things, you know, I don't know. I don't know why everybody gets so offended nowadays when we try to discuss, you know, civil things. You know, we just cannot be civil with one another. So yeah, I'm not really concerned about what people think about me, you know, as far as my friends, you know, being on city council. I really don't. I'm to the point now where I want to fix things, you know.
Okay. Are you aware of the time that it takes to serve on city council and the commitment that it takes?
Is it 4 years?
Well, it is a well, your term would end at the end of this year, I believe,
Oh.
unless you ran
Next
it
year.
next year. Yeah,
With you
so
and
it
I.
would be a year and a half. But then it could average 10 to 20 hours per week, day meetings, evening meetings, serving on committees, going to special events, and things like that. Is that something that you're prepared for and able to fulfill?
Yeah.
We are going to be approaching deciding what our priorities for budgeting next year for 2019. What would be your priorities for city investments in the year 2019?
Well, I don't know too much about the stormwater issue and stuff, but I think that should be something that we focus on, because it's my understanding that it hasn't been updated in, 150 years? Is that correct?
Pretty much.
Okay. So, I mean, that's a pretty important thing.
Okay, so stormwater is a priority. I'm going to list through several issues or topics that we'll be facing in the upcoming future, possibly. And if you wouldn't mind just stating yes or no of your support, or your not support, or neutral. And that would be number one, the acquisition of the Hotel St. Cloud.
I'm for that.
River corridor investment,
And what is that?
the river corridor investments.
Oh, for like a pathway, a walk,
Well, that would be like for economic development along the river across from Centennial Park.
oh, okay. Yeah, I'm for that.
Urban deer hunting,
No,
a recreation center,
yes,
recreational marijuana,
yes.
Highway 50 corridor access,
I don't,
don't know, and stormwater.
yes.
Okay. All right, thank you.
Mr. Hamrick,
Thank you.
it's your turn.
Thank you, Ken, for coming, and thanks for submitting your letter of interest. Have you attended any of the city council meetings before?
Actually, I have. Several years ago, I came in here and stood up and talked about sex offenders here in town, and was wondering why that they were allowed to give out candy on Halloween and be around all these kids. And, you know, I came here wanting to know what we could do about keeping some of these sex offenders out of the parks, away from handing out candy to kids on Halloween and stuff. And I even stood out on street corners out in front of Walmart for months with a sign that says child molesters don't deserve second chances, and a link to the sex offender registry so people could look up sex offenders and stuff like that. And sadly, I think it was several months later, a family was murdered by basically an unregistered sex offender here in town. So I did hear back from, I can't remember who the chief of police was at the time, but they did go back to doing, they basically went around door to door to the sex offenders to basically tell them, because they're allowed, they can hand out candy on Halloween unless they're on probation or parole. It's the ones that are just on the registry and stuff. But the police department did go around and basically tell them, you guys shouldn't be handing out candy. Didn't tell them they couldn't, just told them it probably wouldn't be a good idea. Because what I wanted was some kind of a policy here, you know, through the city council saying, okay, there's certain parks, if you're a child molester, you just stay away from the park, period. But of course, the ACLU would have came in and shut that down, and it would have cost us money and stuff. So I just basically came in here to vent, is what I did, because I couldn't do nothing. So, there you go.
Thank you. The, have you been on the city's website and looked at some of the documents? There's lots of master plans out there, there's regulations and things like that. Have you reviewed any of those materials out there?
No.
Thank you.
Mr. Meisner,
Thank you, Mr. Mayor.
you're welcome.
Welcome, Ken.
Thank you.
I'm just going to do two quick. One statement, there's two questions. Are you aware of the fact that it's currently legal to hunt deer in the city limits with archery?
Am I aware of it?
Right.
Oh, yeah, I'm aware of it.
Just in a nutshell, aside from the opiate issue, what would you like to accomplish between now and December 31st of 2019, the end of your term? One single thing.
One thing, I'd like to bring the community together, you know, have a little better community support and stuff. I think that's the big thing right now. It's just getting people together, you know, to come together so we can start discussing things.
Thank you.
Caitlin?
Thank you. What do you see as our city's greatest challenge right now?
I don't know, we got some pretty bad roads. That's personally, that's one of my, you know, biggest problems with this town is the roads and stuff. I mean, I can't tell you how many struts I've had to replace, how many tires, and, you know, so that's a concern for me.
Okay. Do you have experience in setting a budget?
Well, now, when we'd have to go bounty hunt, we'd have a certain amount we'd have to work with. And, you know, we'd have to go from state to state. We've even had to do some international cases and stuff like that. So, I mean, it was on a smaller basis, but yeah, I've done some of that with my bail bond company.
All right. What do you think City Council could do better or differently?
You know, I don't know. You can't put the blame on City Council for everything in this town. And I know that's what a lot of people do. You know, if they don't like what's going on, they blame you guys and stuff. I don't know. I've never really ran into any of you people out in the public. I've never talked to you. So maybe, you know, I would be one of those people that would be out there more, you know, trying to get connected with more people here. You know, I did. And I'm going to bring something up too, and I know I probably shouldn't, but the recreational marijuana question. The reason why I support that is we use CBD oil on my son, and he was paralyzed. Excuse me? Because of medications. So we did what everybody told us not to do and put him on medical marijuana. He's now walking. He is a professional race car driver with epilepsy, and he graduated a year early from high school with 3.4 GPA. So the reason why I'm so for recreational is because of ever since we started helping our son and people started finding out about it, they would ask us for help. So we would help them. These are people with heroin addictions, people with Parkinson's, all different walks of life. And we've been helping them for the past 3 years with low doses of CBD and mild, very small amounts of THC. So even though we don't use it recreationally, there's a lot of people out there that are using it medically, but have to go to recreational places to get it. So that's why I'm for recreational marijuana in this town. It can help people. There's no difference between recreational marijuana and medical marijuana. It's the users. So I just wanted to get that out. I mean, I'm sure some of you probably checked my Facebook page and saw that I'm an advocate for cannabis. So I want to put that out there.
Can I ask one more question?
Caitlin, are you done?
Yeah, no, I am finished. Thank you for answering my questions.
Okay.
Thank
All
you.
right.
So when you say heroin addicts, have you seen people come off of heroin with the help of CBDs?
CBD and low THC, and it's not just heroin. It's opiates. It's Vicodin, Percocet, all this stuff. We're seeing the heroin, in the paper and stuff like that, the arrests and stuff. But you guys are not seeing what's going on with all the Vicodin and OxyContin. That's huge. And what the doctors are doing now, especially in the VA, is they're just cutting people off their opiates, and they're not giving them another option. Well, we've been working, trying to educate the VA for the past 10 years, and now they're to the point where they allow people to use it. They're not testing for it. What they want to see is if you're on opiates, if you're on anything really, they want to see you decrease your medications. If you're going to be using cannabis, they want to see you're going to drop something if you're going to pick up cannabis. So what we're doing is we're trying to educate people the best way to do it to where you're not getting high. My son is sponsored by medical marijuana at 16 years old. He's the only known epileptic racer on the planet.
Well, congratulations to him and you for getting him that
He just
far.
won the state ice racing championship in February.
Very nice.
This is something huge. My son in 5th grade, when all this stuff happened, was at best a D- student. Now he's a 3.4 GPA student. He graduated his junior year from high school because he applied himself. So, the rec thing, I think, would be really a great source of tax revenue in here, and especially if you guys did it to where it was on a smaller scale. And we learned from all the other problems that Pueblo had, that Manitou Springs had, that everybody else had. We learned from those lessons and do it right, and use that revenue to go for the stormwater issues and anything else. I mean, even increasing our police department and education. There's a lot we can do with this little bit of money, but I just want you to know that there is no difference between rec and medical marijuana except for the taxes.
Okay.
Thank you.
Okay. Could you cite to me an organization that you maybe been a director with or on the board of directors? And
Normal.
how?
Normal?
Oh. What position did you play there?
Treasurer.
Treasurer? Were there decisions made there?
Were there?
Were there decisions made, of course, with that organization?
Yeah.
How did you feel about your decisions? If there was a majority agreement, would you be able to agree with that, or?
A majority.
Well, what if there were decisions made that you might not agree with? How did you handle that? Or weren't there any that you didn't agree with?
Well, I think we're all not going to agree with something. I would want to work through it. I mean, of course, I would want to push my views and stuff like that. But if it's for the best interests of the city, then, there's really no debating that.
So you could be impartial in decision making?
Sure.
Okay. Anyone else? No? Thank you, Ken.
Thank you.
Thanks, Ken.
Thanks.
Thank you.
Okay, this did not include dinner.
Why not?
Well, then, I was misinformed by him.
This didn't include dinner. I shouldn't say stuff like that. I'm so sorry. I don't want to rush. You'd miss your questions. It'll be just fine.
Tony, I thought in our last meeting, and Dolly was there, and she may not have heard this, but I thought Tony made some reference that when we were done, if we ran over, he was taking us to dinner.
I don't.
Yeah, I heard it too. Yeah,
don't.
Jim's right.
Let me point out to you that by
We got snack, but
let me point out to you that by city ordinance, we're not allowed to acquire those drinks unless it's iced tea or water. Or coffee.
Jim said enough coffee.
yeah, I already had coffee.
Okay, where are we? Amanda. Amanda.
Yes.
Hi, Amanda.
Hello.
So how's your experience been in the back room? You wonder what we're doing out here, or?
The water's cold and delicious.
Well, see, we've done something right. So. Okay, well, we're going to ask you questions, and you answer them as honestly and as best you can.
Okay.
We appreciate that. Caitlin, would you like to start?
Sure, I can get us started.
Hi.
Hello, thank you for being here. In your letter, you talked about how you have contact with the public fairly often.
Yes.
And in your experience, what would be one thing Canyon City residents like about our city, and what's one thing you think they could do without?
Oh, I think a lot of people like all of the stuff that you can do outdoors. There's, the river walk, and there's all kinds of hiking trails, and, there's so many ways to be active outdoors, and I think people who choose to live in Colorado really enjoy being outdoors and taking advantage of the different things that the city has to offer. I think compared to, surrounding cities like Pueblo or Springs, we really have a great selection of trail systems and biking areas and mountain climbing and rock climbing, and there's just so much to do within Canyon City, and we see all the time people traveling down to Canyon City to take advantage of the river and everything that we have to offer. So I would say that that's, I think, what draws a lot of people in here and keeps a lot of people here is just all the stuff that you can do and participate in outside. As far as what they would do without, roundabouts are a big complaint that I hear all the time. They can't seem to get past the roundabouts. I will say I was in Scotland earlier this year, and the roundabouts there put these ones to shame. We were on highways, 60, 70 miles per hour, and it would say, roundabout in 300 feet, and in the middle of the highway, they just throw roundabouts in there. I'm like, Canyon City's great. It's way easier than driving over there, but I think people tend to kind of nitpick the smaller stuff and focus on the stuff that's not really as important. A lot of people, I think, just like to find something to complain about, and I think it's a great city, and we really don't have all that much to complain about. At least I don't. So roundabouts, I've heard quite a bit, but
I think we've all had that experience.
Yeah.
What do you see as our city's greatest challenge right now?
I would say it would be drawing in the younger generations. I would say probably 40 and below. I think a lot of people consider this more of a retirement community. And that's kind of what I've experienced living here over the last 3 or so years. You see a lot of people who come in and love the climate because it's not too drastic either way, and except for today when it's 108 degrees outside. But I think that that's probably something that we could work on doing, is trying to get maybe more rec centers or youth programs or something in here to draw in more families to kind of keep the city going.
Thank you. I see from your letter that you've participated in quite a bit of volunteerism. What do you think you've learned from your volunteer positions?
I would say that when you're volunteering, you can't assume anything. You don't really know, backgrounds of people until you actually can sit down and speak with them, and you may feel a certain way about a certain thing, and then you sit down and you actually start talking to people and you get to know them a little better, and you can see, a different side of the story. And, I do a lot of work with the Humane Society and animal rescues and stuff like that, and, you see situations where you have people who are hoarding 100, 150 animals, and people look at that and go, how could they do that? And, it's so much more than, there's financial burden there, that people don't think about, the cost of spaying and neutering, and the emotional attachment that people have to animals and stuff like that. And so I think when you volunteer and you start to actually interact with people on that level, you can get a better feel for, backstories and situations that you wouldn't normally think about.
And I just have one last question.
Okay.
What do you think City Council could do better or differently?
I would say that I think a lot of, well, I shouldn't say a lot. I think citizens sometimes feel like they're not being heard. And the flip side to that is, you know, there's city council meetings twice a month, and, you know, you see people complaining on social media and stuff like that, but you don't have these people coming to the meetings and participating and voicing their opinions here. And I don't know if it's not necessarily city council's issue, it's just kind of a generational thing. I think at this point, people are more comfortable kind of complaining from behind a computer screen rather than getting involved. And I'm not even sure what the best solution to that would be, because I think you'll always have that group of people who want to complain but don't want to get involved to improve their community or get things done the way they feel that they should be done. And again, you know, I'm not really sure what the solution is to that other than just trying to, you know, involve the community more. But I would say that's probably the complaint of most citizens, is that they don't feel that their voices are heard. But again, it's not really a city council issue. It's kind of a citywide issue.
Okay.
So
Thank you very much.
you're welcome.
Mr. Meisner.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Thanks for putting in your interest letter, Amanda. Just a simple question. Your term is roughly going to be about 18 months. Come December of 2019, and looking back, what would have you accomplished that you'd be most proud of?
My ultimate goal would be, you know, I'm married recently and we've discussed having children, and my ultimate goal would be to try and make this city a place that my kids will grow up and want to stay in and raise their children in this community as well. So really anything I can do to better my city, I think would be an accomplishment.
Thank you.
Mr. Hamrick?
Thank you, Mr. Mayor, and thank you, Amanda, for coming, and thanks for submitting your letter of interest. We really do appreciate that. It's great. A lot of times in the decisions the council has to make, or the issues that are presented to council for a decision, involve conflict. And sometimes conflicts involves the rights of citizens and the ability of citizens to do certain things. How do you when there's a conflict, perhaps between a regulation and what a citizen wants to do, how do you think that should be resolved?
I think ultimately the citizens' voice should always be heard, because that's kind of what the city council is here to do, is to kind of be the amplifier for the citizens. Obviously, you have to take into consideration, you know, safety and laws and stuff like that when coming to decisions. But ultimately, I would say that, you know, majority kind of rules. And if the group of people are saying, you know, we feel this way, then as a city councilman, I feel that that's the direction you should go in.
Thank you. Some of the discussions we have with the county include differences of opinion between the city and the county about whether a particular issue should be addressed by a tax.
Okay.
In other words, you know, like a property tax or something like that, or a fee. In other words, something that all citizens would pay. And in the case of conflict over those issues, what do you think? What kind of how would you try to approach that, or what do you think what's the best way to try and bring city, county together on something like that?
I'm sure every situation would be different depending on the circumstances, but again, I think you kind of have to weigh everything against the good of the community. So if it's a tax that, you know, are going to be putting people in financial distress, then obviously you have to take that into consideration. If it's something that's not going to be a huge impact financially, but would make a large impact on, you know, the quality of citizens' lives, then, you know, that's a different situation. But I think it's kind of a case-by-case basis where you just have to judge whether or not it's going to impact negatively or positively for the citizens, and kind of weigh it at that point.
And Amanda, have you listened to any of the council meetings online or
I've been
visited
to
the
a
website?
handful of them this year, yep.
And have you been to any in person?
Yeah, I've been to a couple of them. Well, I think 3 or 4 I've been to this year. The construction one was an interesting one.
Okay.
I know.
Thank you.
Okay, Ms. Smith?
Hello, Amanda.
Hi.
It's good to see you again. I have a few questions for you.
Okay.
First of all, we're preparing to have our priorities for our budget for 2019 and the things that we want to accomplish in the city. What would be some of your priorities that you'd want to invest in Canyon City for next year?
I kind of touched on it before, but I think making it more of a family-based community would be one of my focuses. Some sort of rec center or more programs for the kids to be involved with, stuff like that. We have lots of beautiful parks, but I think beyond the parks, we kind of need more programs to, summer camps and stuff to have the kids participate in and keep them busy when they're not in school. And I'd say that would probably be one of my main focuses.
Are you aware of the time that it takes to serve on city council, and are you able to fulfill those obligations?
I am. I apologize for being late today. I just didn't have very much notice, and my coworker's out of town and had scheduling conflicts.
Well, I asked the same question to everybody, so
Okay.
it wasn't directly given to you. We all,
Yeah.
but just so you know that it could take an average of 10 to 20 hours per week, both daytime meetings, evening meetings, serving on committees, going to special events, and being on boards. Is that something that you're able to fulfill?
Yeah. My job right now is a part-time job with the post office, and I typically average about 25 hours a week. So I think that would give me plenty of time to still, contribute to a city council.
Okay. And there's several issues that the city could possibly be facing in the near future. And I am curious if you could just give a yes or no answer,
Okay.
whether you have a yes to support or no, or maybe or neutral.
Okay.
And one would be the acquisition of the Hotel St. Cloud.
Neutral.
Investment in the river corridor.
Yes.
Urban deer hunting.
Yeah. Well, in favor of?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah.
Community recreation center.
Yes.
Recreational marijuana.
No.
Highway 50 corridor access.
As far as going forward with it?
Mhm.
Yeah.
Stormwater infrastructure investments.
Yes. Yes, but no.
Okay. I think that's all I have for right now.
Okay.
Thank you.
Ms. Gonzalez?
Hi.
It's nice to see you. One of my questions was going to be, how many hours do you work? Because in your letter, you said you worked part-time. It's an average of 25 hours a week
Yeah.
typically that you work? Do you have?
Well, like my coworker this week is out of town, so I'm working 40 hours a week this week.
Okay.
But when we're staffed and everybody's there, it's an average about 20 to 25 hours a week.
Now, do you work every day, or do you work full days and have some days off?
It varies.
Okay.
It just basically depends on what we have going on. I have the flexibility of being able to say, hey, I need to be off, this
Okay.
afternoon, and we can schedule around it. Sometimes I have whole days off, sometimes I just work half days. It just kind of depends. She does a pretty good job of making sure that everybody, if you have a doctor's appointment or if you have something going on, that everybody can kind of work with each other and deal with scheduling that way.
Okay, good. How do you feel about an increase in lodging tax?
Didn't
Are
we
you aware
just-
of the lodging tax?
I know
that-
we just had one not too long ago.
We didn't, it didn't pass last year.
Okay.
And so we're looking at putting it on the ballot again.
I'm kind of conflicted because it's an easy way to create revenue for the city. At the same time, I don't want to discourage people from visiting and spending tax dollars within our city. So depending on, I think, the amount of the tax that would be considered, as long as it wasn't nothing too crazy, I think I would be in favor of that.
Okay. And then my next question is, what areas of municipal operations are of interest to you, and what areas do you find the most complex?
To be perfectly honest with you, it all seems a little complex to me because...
I understand.
Yeah. Because I haven't really had I mean, I've been to city council meetings, but I don't see what goes on behind closed doors. And really my goal is to just participate and try and make my community a better place, however that may be. So I'm a quick learner, and I'm pretty bright, and you know, I feel like I have the drive and the passion to do what it takes to participate, and I don't want to be another keyboard warrior, as they call them, and somebody who just sits at home and complains. I want to participate. So it's all a little overwhelming because I've not served on a city council, obviously, but I am willing to learn.
Thank you. And how would you propose to make it easier for citizens in our community to be more active in local government?
I think most people, it doesn't ever cross their mind to go to a city council meeting unless they're being directly affected. And then when you have those people come in, it's almost like they're past the point of even reason because they're so worked up over a certain issue that I don't know that it even does a whole lot of good having them come. You know, again, it's kind of a community thing. I think people like to complain, and I don't know that a whole lot of them even know how to get involved. I don't know if there's a way to do like community events where you can do like Q&As or kind of open it up so that you can do one-on-one with people or have them come up and talk to you. You know, I know you guys all have office hours and stuff like that, but I think maybe if it was something out in the community at a community event, you know, we had Whitewater this last weekend, and maybe you put up a tent and have a couple city council members sit there, and people who have questions or concerns can stop by and talk to you, and it's a little more informal and it's not quite as daunting as going to a city council meeting. Something like that where, you know, people can ask questions and participate without feeling the overwhelming, you know, that all comes with sitting through a city council meeting.
Thank you.
Just the city manager.
We'll get you a tent.
Well, hey, we got a PIO officer to help with that, but that's an
Yeah.
excellent suggestion. I like that.
Okay. Any more, Dolly?
Thank you, Amanda.
You're welcome.
We did, by the way, have an invitation to kind of have a booth at Whitewater, and then I found out it was a dunk tank.
Well, that's one way to get them
That
participating.
is true. The only invitations we've had at special events involve a dunk tank.
Really?
I was going to go for the pie eating contest, but my wife overruled that.
Yeah.
You seem like a really nice person.
Thank you.
You think you're really tough enough to do this?
I work at the post office, and people yell at me all day long.
All right, we.
So it's pretty much the same thing, I think.
I'm real glad I asked that question. It is, because if you were selected, that within that next few minutes, you have to be fairly tough.
I'm good at saying no, if that helps at all.
Could you, what your experience? What's that no? You said that. So give me an example.
Well, we have, you know, certain regulations that we have to abide by when you're working with the post office, federal regulations, and a lot of, you know, customers come in and don't understand why, you know, they have to do things a certain way, and they get frustrated and they take it out on the face that they see, which is mine, and you have to calmly explain to them, you know, the reasoning behind certain laws and stuff like that, and kind of talk them down and get them to see that there's a bigger picture here. There's a reason behind all of these rules and regulations, and it's not just because we're being mean and trying to make your life difficult. There's reasons behind everything. And, even as simple as, the carriers are the ones out delivering packages, and if they misdeliver a package, people are irate, and they come in, and I'm the face they see. Even though I didn't touch the package, I wasn't out delivering, you still have to sympathize and kind of bring them down a few notches and work with them and try and find a solution. And it's a daily thing.
And you said you were here during the hearing on, was the construction for the road deal?
Yeah.
What was your impression of that?
It was, in one hand, it was really nice to see the community come together because they felt really strongly about something. I'm kind of the belief that there's certain rules and regulations for a reason, and rules and regulations should be followed. So I kind of walked away from that meeting with mixed emotions because, obviously you can feel for the local businessman who wants to participate in his community, but then you can also feel for the company who did everything, by the letter to the T, the way that they were supposed to and followed the rules. And, I think there's really no easy way to walk away from that and say they were right or they were wrong. But it was definitely interesting to watch. I think it got a little out of hand at one point because people just get so emotionally invested, and it's hard to take a step back and just kind of take a breath and go, okay, look at the bigger picture. And yeah.
Well, could you see yourself sitting up here and handling that?
I think so. I wouldn't be here if I didn't. I think I'm good at kind of being a voice of reason and trying to see both sides of every situation and not just making a quick judgment one way or another. I think it's important to have all the background information before you make any kind of decision. And I do like hearing all sides of, when you have a line of people come up and they all, voice their opinions and arguments. I enjoy seeing things from everybody's perspective, so.
And you have no problem making a hard decision and sticking by it?
No, I think once you make a decision, that's your decision. It's kind of like being a parent. Once you say yes or no, you have to stick to that, because if you can't stick to your answer or your opinions, then no one's going to believe you from that point on.
So you can make an impartial decision from the facts?
I believe so, yeah.
Okay. All right. Any other questions? Okay. Thank you, Amanda.
Thank you.
Thank you.
I did
Have you
too.
spoiled- you spoiled your ballot?
Was there one for Frank? Maybe you can use his.
Oh, yeah, thanks, Franks.
Is there another one over there? Oh, Tony marked it too.
Do we need to make a decision?
Yes,
first?
Mr. Meisner, go ahead.
I think unless there's been a change, we need to make for sure that our names are on those ballots because that's public record.
Yes.
So you can just write it on there.
Yeah, I mean, just at the bottom.
All right, let's make it clear. We have the names, we have 3 names there. All right? Are you going to be allowed, are we going to agree that there will be a line for a no vote, which would be a rejection of all 3?
Oh, I think we need to decide first, do we want to move forward with the vote at all or not?
Right.
Right,
Okay?
right.
Would you move forward?
Yes, I would move forward.
I would move forward.
I would move forward.
I'm comfortable with moving forward.
Okay, so the no vote for all 3 candidates is no longer applicable.
Right.
We are going to pick one of the 3.
Yeah, by midnight. Okay, in the
No,
next couple
the
of
mayor
minutes.
gets the final vote. Right? 5. There's only 5. There won't be a tie vote. I'm crushed.
No tie.
Well, I mean.
You want me to abstain?
No.
There could
It
still
could be.
be a tie,
Yes, there could
because
still
there's
be.
more than 2 choices.
2, 2, and 1 is a tie.
Don't do the mathematical stuff with me, okay? It's too late in the day.
Hey, Jerry, while you
All
was
right.
gone, I
Well, let's
mentioned
vote.
that
Let's go ahead and vote.
they need to make sure their names on
Make
the
sure your
ballot.
name is on the ballot.
Oh, wonderful. Thank you.
This is secret.
Public records.
Just put your name on it.
Let's secret for a couple of minutes.
Yeah.
A few more seconds. Carnegie.
Okay.
Mayor, I heard you what we had a unanimous decision.
Okay, would you like me to announce that unanimous decision? Oh, the unanimous
Wait, do we want to
decision is
bring them out?
What?
Bring the
Oh, yeah.
Okay,
candidates out.
let's bring them out.
Tony went.
And we have a planning commission meeting coming up next.
We do. Some
And-
people will get dinner and some people will not.
Oh, there's no dinner involved in planning commission. Is there?
Do what? They're on their own. They're not part of this group.
Is that how you understand it, that there's no dinner with planning commission? See?
Mr. Mayor, I came prepared.
He's got his snack money.
I got my snack money.
And I'm going to take it.
Snack
No.
money?
That was
I'm
your,
going to bully him.
Are you sharing?
that's your monthly salary for being a councilman.
Are your daughters making dinner tonight?
No, Gabby left to go camping. Anna is babysitting, and
Okay,
Nina's helping Dad at the shop.
Well,
when,
that's an easy night for you.
What happened to Matt?
for Max.
Did Ken leave? Oh, there's Ken.
Did,
Okay. We have made, the council has made a unanimous decision for Amanda Cochran. Congratulations, Amanda.
congratulations.
Now, do we swear Amanda in now, or
I think, yeah, we're going to do it on Monday.
Monday, the July 2nd, you have to be here? And
She's still got an out.
What?
She still has an out.
No, no. We're not going to do this again. This has been enough. So congratulations, and thank you for the other gentleman for attending. We really appreciated it. And hopefully, when the mayor's position comes up, you can run for it.
Absolutely.
Just want to say that. So you will be here, Amanda. We will swear you in at that time. Okay?
Thanks to all candidates.
Thanks, all
Thank you
Thank
again.
you, everyone who
So-
came.
And this meeting is adjourned.